Take a seat, sit back, and relax, because you are listening to Real Talk Radio, where the talk gets real.
Welcome everybody to Real Talk Radio. This is your boy Justin JLB, and I am here to talk about, I guess, what everyone else is talking about. This is the Cherry Bomb edition, as we are going to be talking about the controversial comments, quote unquote, made by Don Cherry. So if you've been living under a rock the past few days and haven't heard, Don Cherry has been fired from Sportsnet due to his quote-unquote controversial comments that happened on Coach's Corner on Saturday. So first and foremost, let's take you back to Saturday and show you what was actually said. This is the Cherry Bomb, and have a listen at what Don Cherry said, which got him fired.
You know, I was talking to a veteran. I said, I'm not going to run the poppy thing anymore because what's the sense? I live in Mississauga. Nobody wears very few people wear a poppy. Downtown Toronto, forget it, downtown Toronto, nobody wears a poppy. And I'm not going to, he says, wait a minute. How about running it for the people that buy them? Now, you go to the small cities, and you know those, the rows on rows, you people love, they come here, whatever it is, you love our way of life, you love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys pay for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada. These guys paid the biggest price. Anyhow, I'm going to run it again for you great people and good Canadians that bought a poppy. I'm still going to run it anyhow.
Love you for it.
So what do you think? Honestly, Canada is right smack in the middle. Some people agree he should have got fired, and some people disagree that he shouldn't have got fired, and they're standing with Don Cherry. Some people are even going to the extremes of canceling their Sportsnet subscriptions to that fact. So, and I'm honestly kind of in the middle, but I'm more towards Don Cherry's side. And this is why. Because the action that they actually took to fire Don Cherry was a bit much. Okay, maybe if he would have apologized too, they wouldn't have taken it that far. But at the end of the day, because Don Cherry said, no, I'm not apologizing, this is where I stand, then they kind of just said, well, look, if that's where you stand, this is where we got to stand. We're taking a lot of backlash from this. In reality, though, his message wasn't trying, or I feel at least, because a lot of people are not going to agree with me, I feel it wasn't trying to be hateful. He was just trying to maintain and say that, hey, you're in Canada. I don't see a lot of people wearing poppies anymore, and it's disgusting. And if you want to come to our country, you all should be wearing poppies. Now, the problem with that is, of course, it's not just immigrants, right? There's a lot of Canadians, too, who probably aren't wearing poppies. And for shame on them, because it's one day, one job, just wear the freaking poppy. Remember those people that fought for your freedom. Okay? So, it's just how he said it, too. It's how he said it, and then, I don't know, I just think a lot of people are also blowing it out of proportion because he's done so much for the hockey community. He was a hockey broadcaster for 40 years, and him being somewhat controversial is nothing new. He's done worse. Now, granted, that's no excuse for him to constantly do controversial things to see where he will get caught. But he is known for speaking his mind, and he is known for saying it like it is. He's hardcore patriotic. Okay, he loves Canada. He's hardcore patriotic, and in reality, his message was just support your Canadian troops, wear the poppy, and that's that. Be a good Canadian. And then he went to show where he went to the cemetery in France, showing all the dead soldiers. Okay, so like it was a good message. It was a good message and patriotic. And he was showing his support for the veterans, like he always has. He's went to Afghanistan. He's done a lot of things. His entire family were part of the war. His great grandfather, his grandfather, even his father. Okay, so he has a lot of patriotism, Canadian patriotism, and that's it. And so I don't know why so many people got so upset. Perhaps he could have used different wording. And I think if he would have used, some people instead of you people, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. I think. I'm almost certain. So that's that. Okay. Before he was technically fired, because I want to just go give you through the entire timeline, right? So that poppy incident happened on Saturday. Sunday came along. People started sending complaints to Sportsnet and Rogers and NHL. And there's, I forgot what the website's name, but the website just completely crashed and they couldn't have any more comments. It was like crazy, apparently. So then you have Ron MacLean, who went on TV the day after to apologize for Don Cherry's comments and insisted that he just he didn't say anything at the time because it just didn't click, and that he is deeply apologetic and does not agree with Don Cherry had to say, and went on to say that Canada is a diverse country and so on and so forth. And you know what? Have a listen. Take a listen. Listen.
I wanted to address what happened last night on Hockey Night in Canada. Don Cherry made remarks which were hurtful, discriminatory, which were flat out wrong. We at Sportsnet have apologized. It certainly doesn't stand for what Sportsnet or Rogers represents. We know diversity is the strength of the country. We see it in our travels with our show and with Hockey Night in Canada. So I owe you an apology too. That's the big thing that I want to emphasize. I sat there, did not catch it, did not respond. Idle No More was a great lesson to all of us. Last night was a really great lesson to Don and me. We were wrong. And I sincerely apologize, and I wanted to thank you for calling me and Don on that last night.
Now, I think what Ron MacLean said there was a bit of a dick move. I mean, I also do get it at the same time. He wants to save his job. He wants to still do Hockey Night in Canada. He has a lot more years ahead of him. And you know what? Maybe he was just kind of fed up of Don Cherry's antics and comments and outbursts and so on and so forth. But at the same time, you've also worked with the guy for so long. He maybe did try to save face by also including Don Cherry in that. But of course, Don Cherry took it upon himself to actually mention, no, I'm not apologizing. He actually went on a radio show Monday night with Maury Sherman on KISS 92.5, and he had asked him exactly if Don Cherry felt apologetic or what was happening with the whole news, because by then we already know he was fired, right? And he says, listen, I'm not apologizing for anything. I didn't say anything wrong, and it was just kind of blown out of proportion, and I'm not gonna apologize for anything I did say. Maury Sherman did ask what he thought about Ron MacLean's comments, and he basically said, listen, I'm not going to comment on that situation. I do understand why he said what he said, and it is what it is. Don Cherry already knows MacLean's got to save his job, and that's exactly what he did. But there goes the loyalty in that regard. But when you're pushed up against that kind of wall, I also do get it. What else are you going to do, right? So I get that completely too. I just don't think that it was worth firing over. It's not like he blatantly said, hey, these immigrants, they just come to our country, they don't do anything, and so on and so forth. He didn't say that. And it just seemed that he was just talking about people who didn't wear the poppies and they come here and so on. I mean, he could have just meant they come here in a form of, these people come here. I mean, I guess there's no other way to interpret that, to be honest with you. But he was just saying, because then he goes on to mention, good Canadians, this is for you. So he was just referring to also Canadians in general. A lot of people are not wearing them. He was mentioning a lot of people in Toronto. People in Toronto don't wear them. Not everyone in Toronto is an immigrant. So it was blown out of proportion. I do think this was Sportsnet's way of just trying to get Don Cherry out. I feel like they've been maybe wanting to figure out a way to get rid of him. There's definitely been worse stuff that he has done, with the whole him hating Europeans and the French players, saying that only Europeans and French players wear visors. I think that was some kind of comment back in like 2004 or something. And then calling people crazy kooks. Like, he's done worse. So it just doesn't make any sense. And it's just a very sad day for Don Cherry to get fired for nothing. And then I think it just plays into also the cancel culture of just people being so offended. Like, granted, he didn't have to say it. It's talking about hockey after all. He could have just stuck to that. But maybe that's why people also watch the Hockey Night in Canada, because they wanted to see Don Cherry's outbursts and so on and so forth. But it is what it is, was what it was, and I guess that's how it's going to be. There are talks on people who are going to possibly replace him, and it's currently still just a rumor, and it's the former Maple Leafs GM, Brian Burke, who's now a Sportsnet analyst. There is still no talk, though, on who will be replacing them or if the Hockey Night in Canada segment will still actually continue. So I guess we will find out maybe this Saturday, or maybe we'll find out next week. Maybe they're going to take a little bit of a hiatus, although it's definitely going to change the hockey atmosphere for Saturdays, because Hockey Night in Canada was always something that everybody liked watching, or at least for most Canadians who liked watching. Just for Don Cherry's outbursts and so on and so forth. So we'll see what happens, but that is that, I guess. And that's it. I mean, I enjoyed watching Don Cherry on Saturday nights when, he had a lot to say about what was going on in the game. McLean was more of the analyst, and then Don Cherry was more there for the entertainment, but it was always interesting. It was always fun. And, of course, his suits, looking at that, seeing what new suit that he had, his spring suits, his Christmas suits, his just randomized suits, his funny suits, all those suits. Just so many of them. It was just good times. It's just really sad to see Don Cherry leave in this kind of way. It felt like, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. Like there's no way out of it, I guess. Well, there is. They could have just fined him. Just a bit ridiculous. But it's just sad over a 40-year career to have been let go like this is just such a shame. But Don Cherry, thank you for the good times, the entertainment, the suit wearing entertainment as well, just everything, and for being a true patriot to Canada in that regard. And thank you for all of the good times and all of the entertainment you have brought us all of these years. I certainly enjoyed it, and I will certainly check you out wherever you may be in your future endeavors, or if you want to call it quits and throw in the towel, by all means, good sir, you deserved it, and would just like to thank you for all the years that you have put into the sport that you love. And that is that. That's how it is. That's how it goes. And that's where it ends. Thank you, Don Cherry.
Take a seat. Sit back and relax, because you are listening to the Talk Radio, where the talk